Hey everybody, welcome to Big Valley Living. I'm Michelle and JJ's behind the camera today. This is one of my very favorite summertime recipes, and you can make it ahead, keep some in the fridge, and then maybe even put some in the freezer if you follow the instructions to this particular video. This is the creamiest roasted tomato soup. I got my Vitamix about 7 years ago, and there was like a Sunday class over at Williams-Sonoma. And that's where I learned the original recipe. And then of course, you start doing things on your own. And so this is a soup that I make, and it is absolutely refreshing, and it's a wonderful way to use the fresh tomatoes from summer. Come along and we'll go into the kitchen. A single recipe of this soup calls for 3 pounds of tomatoes. I'm gonna make a double batch. So we have just under 6 pounds right here, and I am gonna core those and slice them in half. But first, let's go ahead and make the sauce. We'll start with 4 tablespoons of olive oil. I like to make sure that there's plenty of this sauce, this marinade, whatever you want to call it, to put over the top of the tomatoes, because this is what's gonna give it all of its flavor. We'll use twice as much balsamic vinegar as we do extra virgin olive oil. So in this case, we're gonna go ahead and put in 8 tablespoons of balsamic. This gives it the most delicious depth of flavor, you guys. It's so good. The next 2 ingredients are 4 teaspoons or 8 cloves of fresh pressed garlic, and then 2 teaspoons of dried thyme. About a half a teaspoon to 3/4 freshly ground sea salt. We'll be adjusting our flavors when we cook the tomatoes down tomorrow with the onions and the rest of the recipes before blending it up. And then we also want to have some nice fresh pepper. So let's go ahead and put a generous amount of pepper in here. And I'm actually going to transfer this to a measuring cup, whisk it together really well, then we'll prepare the tomatoes. Before cleaning and cutting your tomatoes, line a cookie sheet or a baking sheet, just a standard size. Make sure that you have lips on it though. Don't use a flat pan, because you're going to want to catch all the drips and the bits, with parchment paper. Set it off to the side and keep it near your cutting board so that you can put the tomatoes directly onto your cookie sheet. Now let's go ahead and take out the center. It's okay if there's some white stuff in there, the center of the tomato, because it's all gonna break down really well. And just make sure that if you see anything kind of weird like this, get rid of it and check the inside, make sure it's okay and clean. If there's a little scar on it, that's totally okay. It's gonna all be blended up at some point, okay? And then you're gonna wanna get them cut in half as equally as you possibly can before putting it onto the cookie sheet. Just gonna go ahead and get them all cleaned and cut. This is too much scarring for me. Make sure that you're getting the meatiest variety of tomato for the very best soup. These are heirloom tomatoes. Purple, I think we have some Cherokee purples here, and I'm really not sure of the other variety, but do you see how meaty this is on the inside? That is gonna make a really, really robust soup. Oh my goodness, I really wanted to keep this to 1 pan, but if I leave them like this, they'll be too crowded. So I'm gonna split them up into 2 pans, and I will rotate the pans halfway in the oven. We have 2 beautiful cookie sheets of tomatoes, and these are so juicy that they're already starting to drip on the pans, which is a good thing because you're gonna want all that juice to come out after it roasts, and that's gonna be part of the deliciousness. So I just whisked up my sauce, and what I'm gonna do is pour a little bit on top of each one. You could spoon it on if you have it in a bowl, but you want to make sure that every tomato has some of this on it, okay? And 45 minutes to an hour later, I'm right at about 50 minutes at 500 degrees. This is perfect. Would you look at that steamy deliciousness? Oh yeah. And you see all that juice? I don't think I've ever had this much broth, if you will, left. So I'm really excited to see what the flavor is going to be like. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to let them sit here for about an hour and cool down, and then I'm going to put them into the refrigerator overnight. If you wanted to move on to the next step, then you could absolutely do that. I will refrigerate them overnight because it's the best way to get the maximum flavor in this tomato soup. Put it into a Pampered Chef bowl for the night. I'm putting it into the fridge. As I said earlier, you could absolutely go straight into step 2 right now. But this is going to give it just a little extra time to absorb the flavors. Now I have a deep pan. If you wanted to, you could just use a normal pan that you might use for a sauce or something for a family. But I have this one that's about half as high and it's easier to work with. I have my electric stove on 6, so that's like a lower medium high, or a high medium if you will. And now I'm going to put in approximately 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Really, I'm just putting in enough to coat the bottom. If you are whole food plant-based, you could eliminate the oil not only from that marinade that we used on the tomatoes, but also from this process. And if you were going to eliminate the oil, you'd put a little bit of water in your pan before adding, remember we doubled our recipe, 2 medium to large diced onions. So I have these, and you hear I heated that oil up a little bit because that'll just get it going. And what we're gonna do is brown these for about 8 minutes. What we'll do is I'm gonna let them sit. I'm gonna coat them first. And then I'm gonna come back and visit them while I go and get a few other things ready. You're going to need a high-speed blender or an immersion blender for the step to get it all nice and smooth. So let's let this go for a minute and then we will add the next set of ingredients. This is exciting. Okay, so I am seeing some, you see it's getting dark there? That's what I kind of am going for because I want some deep flavor. I'm adding a generous cup of white wine. And when I say generous, it's probably a cup and a quarter. And, oh my goodness, you want to get all the fond off of there. And you saw that I tempered the pan by putting just a little bit in there. Do that and do it gently, okay, so that it doesn't splatter back. It shouldn't because it isn't oil, but you just don't really want to take a chance, right? You don't want a bunch of steam to come up in your face either. Okay, now I'm going to turn this up a tiny bit to about 8. And the goal here is to make sure you get all the brown bits off of this, okay? And a bamboo tool is the best way to go, okay? If you want to get some nice, adorable custom bamboo tools, I will put a link to a lovely young lady who makes these custom, and it'll be down in the description. Support your local businesses, and if you don't have one that gives you these, then support mine. What we're gonna do is reduce the wine, the liquid in here right now, by half. So again, I turn this up to 8, and I may turn it down to 7.5, just so that it doesn't go too quickly. And this only takes about maybe 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, this is just about halfway there. We're getting really close, but you can see it's still cooking down a little bit. It is smelling so delicious in here. Now, you see that? There's not a bunch of wine spilling off to the side. That is exactly what I want. Do you see how nice and caramelized these onions are? That is pure flavor, everybody. Pure flavor. So the next thing we're going to do is take those tomatoes and all of the juices that we roasted last night and put in the refrigerator this morning, or overnight, pardon me. And we're going to put that in. Oh, look at that. We need 6 cups of chicken broth. Now, every year we buy a nice, we splurge for Thanksgiving, and we buy a nice organic turkey. And then, to make sure that we get everything we can out of it, we make turkey broth. And we're going to use that instead of chicken broth. You could also use vegetable broth, again, if you want to go whole food plant-based. Vegetable broth would work just as well in this. So, I need 6 cups. And I am going to turn the heat up to about 9 just to get it to a gentle boil. And then this one we tried where we put turmeric, black pepper, and a little bit of salt, I think, right, JJ? And so we're going to go ahead and I'm just adding a little bit of water to swish all those good flavors out. Put that in there. We're going to bring it to a boil, cover and simmer for about 15 minutes. Oh my gosh, I seriously wish that you could smell this delicious soup. Okay, let's open the lid away from us because it is steaming and we don't want to burn our face or anything else. Okay, and give it a stir. It's been about 15 minutes to get it to this point. And remember, we brought cold tomatoes in from the refrigerator. Had you decided to just go straight from the oven and get everything going, then it certainly would have come to a gentle boil a lot faster. I also want you to note that this is still pretty wet, okay? We do want it juicy, but I want to have a little bit of a thicker soup. That's just my preference. So I'm going to take the lid off. I'm going to turn it to 8, actually 7, because I don't want it splattering all over the place and I don't want to get my splatter guard dirty. And we'll give it about 10 minutes. I just want it to come down a tiny bit and thicken up. And then we're going to go ahead and put it into the Vitamix. This is what we are looking for right here. I can hear it. It looks a little thicker. You see how it's reduced? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the heat off and I'm going to remove it from the heat to cool down just a little bit before we start transferring it into the blender in batches. So you guys, again, I really wish you could smell this. This soup is going to be good tomorrow, but it also comes out really well if you freeze it and bring it out later in the winter when you want a nice grilled cheese sandwich and a nice hot bowl of soup in front of the fire. All right, So look at all that we got out of this recipe. I have 2 bowls of soup that I'm actually going to have for dinner tonight. JJ is going to have something else because he's not a really big soup fan, especially in the summertime. I have 2 pints that are going to go into the refrigerator that I'll eat over the next couple of days for lunch. And then I have 4 cups in my super cubes. And you've heard me talk about super cubes before. They're a wonderful way to freeze soup in 1 cup increments. You can also freeze things like mashed potatoes and gravy that are left over, and they reheat like a dream. Anyway, we do have an affiliate link below in the description, so if you'd like to check them out, please go through our channel. And you would never regret getting these because you can stack them up in the freezer and they don't take a lot of real estate. Eat local, eat fresh. This is a great meal to enjoy summer tomatoes no matter where you live. So I hope you try it. And again, remember that you can make the whole thing at one time, or you can take your tomatoes, refrigerate them overnight, and then make the rest of the soup the following day. Very important. Thank you very much for visiting Big Valley Living. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment below if you have a recipe like this that you'd like, or if you try it, let us know if you liked it. And hit the little bell if you'd like to be notified of future videos like this. Thanks again, everybody.
See you later, everybody.
Be kind.